Hello, hello. Yes, we are doing Nehemiah, our first part of Nehemiah, another fairly short book. We may get it done this week, we may not. It's a little bit longer than our last, but we will go ahead and get into it today, our first part. Just to go ahead and clarify here, Nehemiah is a cupbearer to King Artaxerxes, or I say Artaxerxes, something like that. I'm not good with these pronunciations. Artaxerxes, we'll go ahead and leave it at that. But anyways, he's the son of Hakaliah, or Hakaliah, son of Hakaliah. He's also the cupbearer to the king of Persia, or of the Trans-Euphrates. So let's go ahead and read his story. Let's see what comes about. And with that, let's start out with this quote, because it does set the tone quite well. It says, "Prosperity fears and distastes, and adversity is not without comforts and hopes." And with this same reference or same source as the other quote on prosperity, this one I just decided not to source because it's a little bit unclear. But prosperity is not without many fears and distastes, and adversity is not without comforts and hopes. So we talked about this quite a lot. In order to gain prosperity, or even being involved and immersed in prosperity, it comes with a lot of negative. Okay, you feel you may be missing out, or there's a little bit of apprehension, or you want to take another step, but there's fear involved. There's distaste, there's challenges, there are literal roadblocks or metaphysical roadblocks that may be blocking maybe another level of prosperity or another level of fullness and completion. With that, there's also the adversity that does not come without comforts and hopes. So many people stay in adversity, or they cling to adversity because it almost provides them a little bit of comfort or something like that, or hope for better. And a lot of people like to cling to that and just stay right put. So with that, we need a little bit of a balance of both. Nehemiah, okay, he's an Israelite, but he's also cupbearer to the king, so he has an esteemed position. Okay, this was a very trusted position that is only given to the most trustworthy and moral individuals, because you're really guarding the king's safety when it comes to what the king eats and what he drinks and consumes. So it's very, very crucial in the sense that you do need to be a very trustworthy person to go ahead and be much like a second hand to the king almost, but more in the same line as servitude, and you're in service at the same time. So we can argue that Nehemiah was in a state of prosperity, right, being within the palace and being able to serve the king in such a crucial way. But he had this fear, this inkling, this anxiety about his people down in Jerusalem, down in Judah, in Israel, rebuilding. You know, he knew that there was something wrong, so he had a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of fear in regards to where he came from. And then, of course, here we have adversity that he was feeling, because it was a big step for him to ask King Artaxerxes about this. And we're going to go ahead and learn what he asks of the king and what his request is and how it's answered. So it's a little bit of a challenge, and he's comfortable and he has hope that it will work and faith in God that it will work. And so that's how we really overcome adversity. With God, adversity becomes easy. It becomes a little bit comfortable, and it becomes really just relying on hope. And prosperity, or attaining that next level does come with a little bit of fear, but with God it makes it easy, and it makes it like you almost experience no fear or no distaste at all. So with this, we'll go ahead and continue here with chapter 1. It says, "In the words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, cupbearer to the king," so that is Nehemiah. It says here, "In the months of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men. And I questioned them about the Judah's remnant that survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. They said to me, "Those who survived the exile are back in the province and are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and the gates have been burned with fire." When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. So it was actually, he was curious. I do believe he was curious about how his his Jewish brothers and sisters were doing. But he did actually have here Hanani come back and tell him the report, and it did prove true, right? It proved true, and he did suffer from a bit of anxiety, but it was overcome, right? The adversity was overcome through fasting and praying. And then he said to the God of heaven in his prayer, "We have acted very wickedly towards you. We have not obeyed the commands, decrees, and laws you gave your servant Moses." And of course, the prayer is a little bit more lengthy if you would like to go read that in chapter 1. But it continues, "In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before. The king said to me, 'What is it do you want?' Or what is it you want?" Then again he prayed to the God of heaven, and he answered the king, "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city of Judah where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it." I also said to him, "If it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of Trans-Euphrates, so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah. And may I have a letter to Asaph, keeper of the royal park, so that he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel by the temple, and for the city wall, and for the residence I will occupy?" And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my requests. All right. So he really does this big ask. Yes, he's a trusted individual within the king's consort. But one of the first things that the king responded to him when he asked him was, "Okay, how long will you be gone?" Because again, an important person, hand of the king in this way, he needed to make it kind of a quick journey and not a forever departure. So the king did actually ask him, "How long will this journey take?" Because he is trusted and because he is needed within the palace, if you will. So with this, he does have some very big asks, and they were granted almost immediately, and he was actually compelled, again, through the confidence in his Lord, to go ahead and ask for more and more and more, and of course the king granted him his request. So it is a beautiful thing to see King Artaxerxes listening to his cupbearer, right, of all people, listening to his cupbearer, and granting him with these accesses to go ahead and get lumber and to make this journey, and to have guards coming with him and people coming with him to help him. So it was a big ask, and it was fulfilled. A good example of asking and you shall receive. A little bit of motivation to go ahead and take that step, go ahead and make that move. Don't be scared. The hand of God is on you, as it was here on Nehemiah. So, good little piece of motivation. I'm not going to rattle too long on this. I'll just leave you with this narrative, and we'll see what comes out of this another day, perhaps tomorrow. So, I appreciate you guys listening. I'll leave you with this. Have a good rest of your week. God bless you.